inflation is when your money doesn't go as far as you'd like it to.
It feels like we're getting a little bit less bang for our buck, so to speak.
Biggest impacts I've experienced in my daily life when it comes to inflation is simply gas prices.
Groceries got so expensive.
I have to relocate my whole life.
What I immediately feel is a little bit, angry, frustrated.
Overwhelmed, just constantly overwhelmed.
I'm gonna have to make trade-offs in the future, like whether or not I have a family.
Tough times doesn't last. Out of that tough time, I want to shine and I want to still impact lives.
No matter where you are in the world right now, a somewhat scary spectre looms large, and it's fair to say it has the potential to affect our overall sense of well-being. And that might be because over the last year, in many ways and for many reasons, our sense of financial security has shifted somewhat. Indeed, our available funds don't seem to stretch as far as they used to. And when you add to that the constant flagging by the business media of issues such as supply chain disruptions and cost of production and currency depreciation, even using words such as scarcity of goods, there's little wonder that we all find ourselves in a struggle against the unwanted house guest known as inflation. Now, beyond grocery bills rising and the cost of our mortgage climbing, perhaps many of us don't really understand what inflation is. And even more importantly, maybe we don't understand the impact that the unseen and seen forces behind inflation can have on our minds. I'm Bob Carley, and this is Money and the Brain. Now, to help me in this quest, I have enlisted the help of Dr. Meg Elkins. Dr. Elkins is a behavioural economist, and she is a senior lecturer at the RMIT University in Melbourne in Australia.
So I like to look at why people do what they do. We like to look at people's decision making, particularly in relation to that economic decision making. Economists think about inflation as rising price levels. So we look at a period of time and we see how price levels are rising. The way we do that is through an index called the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. And it takes a basket of goods and it measures the changes in those prices over a period of time. It can be 3 months, it can be a year, and basically we look at what a general household will buy, and from that basket we then measure how price changes.
Has this happened through the ages? Are there any examples of in the past where we came through it, or can we learn from history when it comes to inflation?
Well, it's happened multiple times in our history, but not recently. The central banks seem to have learnt from their lessons of the 70s, which is why you're watching interest rates. And they did not do that in the 70s. They weren't quick enough to dampen consumer expectations. So what we're wanting to do in this cycle, at least the central banks, is to contract the economy so it's not so hot. We call this, if they can do that, we get a nice soft landing.
Oh.
That means that we don't go into that heightened economic crisis. So the central banks are doing this to soften the landing. It might not feel it when you're paying big, high mortgage payments. I know I'm paying a lot more in my mortgage every month. But the idea behind that is to not repeat what the history was of the previous high inflation period of the 70s. It did also rise in the 80s as well.
If I'm right in saying this, it's almost as if the media report, hey, prices are going to go up, we all run out to buy something to avoid the price rise, and then does that feed the inflation?
This is something we call inflationary psychology.
Oh.
Inflationary psychology is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it means that if you think prices are going up, let me give you an example. If I say to you, inflation's going to be rising next year, you will go and buy something now in anticipation of those prices rising. So if you start buying now, what you're doing is actually contributing to demand here. You're pushing up the prices because you're demanding stuff, because you're anticipating inflation. So it becomes this cycle of you're thinking prices are going up, so you're going to buy now, which pushes prices up. And then this spiral kicks in that you can barely contain. And that's the bit that we have to be wary of.
So, Dr. Elkins, I have heard you beautifully explain from an economist's point of view inflation, and now I want to dip into the dark side from the psychologist's point of view. How is this affecting our heads and hearts? I know clearly we know how it's affecting our pockets and our wallets and our bank accounts, but in our heads and heart bank account, does this affect the balance we have in it?
This goes to the heart of why I'm a behaviouralist. It's understanding why people do what they do. And there's a couple of biases that kick in with inflation. And it's the way that we approach gains and losses. Two famous Israeli psychologists and economists together talked about this idea that we fear losses more than we appreciate gains. So losses loom larger than gains, which means that often we're more motivated by avoiding losses than we are by looking towards gains. You tend to hold things closer to you because you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose your house. You don't want to lose your job. You don't want to lose your car. You're not looking for the next big thing. So this is the psychology of inflation. Partly that is savings. That's the idea. The central banks are wanting consumers to save and not spend so they can take the heat out of the economy. And there's also there's conflicting elements that we have. We're not purely rational beings. We are more like Homer from The Simpsons than we are like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. And Mr. Spock would always make rational decisions. He'd always make the right decisions. But mostly we are more like Homer from The Simpsons, and we make irrational and we make bad decisions. So if we think that we're going to miss out on something, if there's a fear of missing out, we tend to want to buy that thing and have that thing. If I say to you, you can't eat out in restaurants for the next 6 months, all of a sudden that scarcity bias kicks in and you want that. We tend to value things more that we can't have. So there's two competing kind of psychologies happening here. One that we are fearing losses and the other that we fear missing out. And this is what I find really interesting, watching people's behaviour, because we're not one standard human being. We tend to be quite ritualistic with our behaviour. We tend to do the same things all the time because we have to make so many choices in a day that we use shortcuts to make decisions. And that means we're not always thinking when we're going about our daily business. With inflation, we can't go through those same patterns of behaviour. And because our purchasing power or our bang for the buck is actually reduced. So we do have to make adjustments if you want to have the same level or standard of living. That means that you're aware of your heating cycle, that you're aware of where you're driving to, that you're aware of what you're buying, that you're buying fruits and vegetables that are seasonal. These things are small tweaks, but if you're just doing what you're always doing, you're going to experience the pinch. And you probably, if you're not adjusting your behaviour, you are feeling the pinch. But all level of economics assumes that we have cycles. And sometimes you've got to be aware that we can ride through those cycles and not be influenced by the news cycle, which is designed to have money, make money out of
fear,
sometimes spreading fear. In the whole, the economy's been really strong for a very long period of time, for 30 years. So in terms of adjustments, we haven't really had to adjust our behaviour. This is going to be interesting to watch to see if people are responding or if we're just hedonistic and we're going to do what we always do.
So when our bank accounts become stressed, as they often do during times of inflation, it is so easy for our heads and hearts to follow into that space of stress. And like many aspects of psychology, it is quite often the fear of the fear that's worse than the actual fear itself. In other words, I believe if we can come to an understanding of inflation, what it is, what it can do to our finances, and indeed what it can do to our psyche, well then perhaps we'll be less afraid of it. I want to thank Dr. Elkins for the wonderful conversation today, for helping us become more mindful about inflation, more informed about inflation, and hopefully less afraid of inflation. And this great exploration of the relationship between money and the brain and our behaviour, I know today we've uncovered many great answers, but I also know we've discovered many more questions. But that's good news, because that gives us lots more to talk about. So, thanks for watching today. Do drop back in and visit. Until we meet again, mind yourself and mind each other.